All right, hello, Wilbur Club fans, and welcome to Week 5's featured match. I'm joined today by my lovely host, Joey, also known as joeayt, of the Akron Agron, so go ahead and say hello.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I, as always, am catmeasles, also known as Matt, of the Cincinnati Incineroar. And as you can see on the screen, I am one of the teams in this week's featured match, and I had the pleasure of playing the Zanesville Zigzagoons, coached by Josh, also known as Murph J4. So, interesting match here. If you look at the team composition, um, I have Zoroark and Ditto, kind of some staples of the idea behind my team, but I do not have Tapu Koko, I do not have Tapu Lele, and I do not have Kartana, the typical heavy hitters of the team. So, based on the matchup, I kind of thought that this would be a good week to, let the lower tier guys, do some work and shine a little bit, and we'll see if that's the case here. And then on the other team, um, got some kind of a mix of more utility Pokemon like Klefki and Rotom Wash, uh, and the bulkier Hippowdon as well. And then it looks like Gardevoir and Bisharp are probably going to be the heavy hitters here, with Violet Bloom kind of serving a backup to that role. And so yeah, we'll see how this shakes out. I would say, in general, this is, not a lot of Pokemon you would see in Draft League. You'd probably expect to see more higher powered Pokemon. But, I'm excited to see how this plays out. I mean, I know how it plays out, obviously. But, um, yeah. Do you have any thoughts before we get started, Joe?
I guess one thought is the illusion on Zoroark could be particularly impactful here, with Klefki often having Prankster. Got it. Maybe think a bit more before clicking those moves, because it might be a Zoroark on the other side.
True, yeah. Dark types, of course, immune to uh, Prankster moves. So we'll see if that plays out here as well. And just adds to the mind games. So that's a fun little interaction between those two. All right, well, that said, let's go ahead and get started in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, the leads are going to be Ludicolo and Gardevoir. So a little Gen 3 matchup here. Trace comes out to reveal own tempo, and is going to immediately switch into Powdon. And
Swords Dance, so run
yeah,
physical Ludicolo.
yep, with that base 70 attack, baby. I really thought I was doing something here. Go for Seed Bomb, not the typical Giga Drain. Only does about half though, which is disappointing. But
Yeah.
the thing about half is that another hit will do it, unless they have leftover. So
I mean, it could have been a lower roll.
yeah, true. So I decided to get greedy,
Yes,
go for another Swords Dance to make sure I will finish it with another one.
get the
Uh,
toxic.
yeah, that's kind of a
So you
bummer.
can't stay in forever.
Yeah. And here's the keys, which, as soon as I saw this thing, I'm like, oh no, he has foul play, doesn't he? And of course it does. Why wouldn't it? And I also decided not to check the speeds, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I'm faster
Yep,
than it,
yep.
and I'm not
There's
faster
the
than it.
foul
So,
play. Drain
so
Punch.
Drain Punch is going to heal me a little bit, but not really enough to let me survive another hit, unfortunately.
Yep.
I don't remember my set, but I think I might have even had rest, so I could have got that off. But
Uh,
you know, it's not like it would have mattered because doing that much with foul play, I wouldn't have been able to survive those 2 turns resting. But
right.
yeah, anyway, here we are.
Ooh,
And yeah, there's that interaction we were talking about.
there you go.
Turtonator you would expect to be affected by Thunder Wave, but uh, this must be a Zoroark.
Not
Must be a
this
Dark type.
Turtonator.
Yeah, yeah, I got the special Turtonator, and so there's Grass Knot, another indicator that this is in fact a
Nice,
Zoroark we're
nice.
dealing with. And Hippowdon goes down. So here comes Gardevoir. No trace going off. Yet another sign, even though Zoroark hasn't actually officially been revealed yet. But there's that Moonblast, which will hit
Yep.
Mr. Protected
Accuracy
damage.
drop doesn't matter, unfortunately.
Yeah, if only it had. I was having a lot of fun there with all those strange interactions. And here's another fun one. Quagsire comes in and the trace goes off, even though Gardevoir has already been sitting there for a turn. Um, but he's going to switch out and
All right.
take that
Wow,
toxic.
Bloom does not care about the toxic.
Yep, not one bit. And Quagsire cares quite a bit about this Vileplume here, so he's going to switch out. And we got Xatu, who does not care about that Giga Drain. So, and also does not care about those rocks. It has the boots. So it's gonna go ahead and
Indeed.
see if we can get rid of those. Some defog.
Yep. Always good to be able to switch freely.
And they drop
Sand
that
also
evasion.
ends.
Yep, true.
Yep.
And Hippowdon being gone means that is gone for good. Here's the
White
real
herb.
Turtonator. Yep.
White herb confirmed on Turtonator.
And back into large Charlie, but no Volt Switch for you. It's kind of a good play. I actually was not Water Absorbed in this match, so he could have gone for a Hydro Pump. I don't know if he had it.
You were reading a switch there, I guess, or just forgot about Levitate. One of those.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good switch. And, this interaction here, that's the second Miss Poltergeist we got, I think, which is fun. I get for Toxic, not expecting sub.
Another Toxic into the sub.
Or expecting a switch, I don't remember. And see, he does switch eventually, because I'm like, he can't do anything to me, right?
Third time is the charm.
Yeah. I mean, I can sit here, I'm pretty sure I'm packing Recover and Rest on this thing, because why not? And so, like, he can't do anything, even behind a sub. But this sucks. I do not want to be Specs. I want to be able to switch my moves as freely as possible. So at least I've poisoned it, but I'm going to switch out for the time being. Come into my Sussy Bot right here. And see if we can, revenge kill. Well, not revenge kill, but just take this Gardevoir out.
Right.
Its own power.
Physical Fire.
Yeah, so that's good.
In which case, probably a Rotom coming out next, as it's the one that resists it. Yep.
But the leftovers have been revealed on the Ditto, so not Scarf.
True.
But I do switch out anyway. And Poltergeist is interesting on Rotom. I mean, I wonder what his spread was, because like that's a physical move. But yeah, it's able to do some chunks for sure.
The double switch turn.
Yeah, and so now Turtonator is gonna smash, baby.
Yep, as expected.
And no more.
And then he's gonna sleep.
Yeah, and that sucks because like I had also gotten rid of the White Herb, so I didn't have to worry about Poltergeist or anything, and then he just puts it to sleep, which I should have known. Whatever.
And he doesn't wake up.
Yep, and so that's a bummer, but I don't know, whatever. At this point, I'm kind of honestly that was kind of I don't know. I shouldn't have let him fall asleep. I don't know what was optimal in that scenario, but anyway, he's gonna switch in to the Sludge Bomb that I stole from his Vileplume. He's gonna try and dance. I don't like that.
And
so
he is also going to buff while sleeping.
Yeah, so that was fun. Man, having Ditto switch in or transform into like bulky Pokemon is underrated, man, because they got so many annoying moves. You can throw right back at him.
Just stays in, does the Earthquake. Or, whoops, misread where the switches were there. So Earthquaked into the switch. Now comes Rotom.
Double switch. So that's a good call on his part, because obviously I don't want to be there. But then I remember that he can't do anything to me. That Poltergeist only doing 16%. And he does burn me, which is a bummer. I recover, still have Specs. So, I'm kind of in a pickle here.
Oh, he's really trying to push your Quagsire to be a special Quagsire.
Yeah. Your physical moves are halved, Okay, so here comes Ditto. He's asleep. I'm not. And I'm slowly recovering my health to be at a good range. Although he does wake up here and goes for knockoff, which gets rid of leftovers. So now I just gotta go for it. And I Swords Dance. I survive his Sucker Punch. I knock him off. No more Black Glasses, so his next move is going to do less, unless he goes for Iron Head, which is going to be enough, unfortunately. And if I can take out Vileplume, then I know I've got the game, because he can't do anything to me with Rotom. And actually, Bisharp was the one that I really wanted to get rid of, because Xatu has Cosmic Power and Stored Power, and I can just go off with them But
Right.
you know, that's the only move, and a dark type is going to throw a wrench in that plan a little bit. So I'm just kind of biding my time here. I'm seeing if I can bait out the Bisharp and get my HP
There he
up to a
goes,
healthy
sends out the
range.
Bisharp.
And so here it is. And I roost on the switch in, and I'm gonna see if I can bait him to stay in. I come in. I know that I have already slept for 2 turns. I don't know if he does, and so maybe he's expecting me to stay asleep here or fishing for a flinch. I wake up and take him out, and I think that mind game with the rest might have been necessary to you know, get me to bait that and keep that
Right. To
Bisharp
let
in.
him feel safe, keep the
Mm-hmm.
Bisharp in.
Yeah, and so got to pay attention to those turns. Uh, and that was really like the turning point for me, because here comes that first Cosmic Power, and you know I've got Roost, so
And
and that Magic
bounces the
Bounce is
Sleep
gonna
Powder.
yeah, that Sleep Powder's not doing anything here. He can't status me. He can't, you know, the best he can do is just try and damage, you know, through the power. But
Yep.
the higher my defense gets, the harder that's going to be, and it doesn't
And
help that he loses the
another
Poltergeist.
Poltergeist miss.
Yep. So Storm Power not quite gonna finish, but you know, now I can kind of take my time here. Tank that, only 21%. Thankfully not a crit, that would have been kind of dangerous.
Right.
And roost up, get to a healthy range.
Just, yep, heal yourself up while Rotom keeps killing itself.
Yeah.
There's a crit, but at this point,
Yes.
it doesn't kill you.
So thank goodness I healed. He finally hits and also crits, which is a bummer, but Vileplume is not going to be able to do anything to Xatu at this point, so just one final attack will finish the game.
There it is.
So yeah, kind of a weird match. I think, you know, more mind games than usual for this league. But I mean, that's kind of like the idea behind my team. But even so, I think that like it wasn't the kind of mind games you would expect to see with like the illusion and transform tactics. Like I don't know, baiting the
Right.
Bisharp I think was really big, and I think, you know, thankfully that came out the way that it did.
Yeah, that did really clear it up so that Xatu could take care of the remaining Pokemon.
Yeah, but if it hadn't been for that, I mean, this very easily could have gone the other way. Like I think I was kind of backed against the wall for a long time during this match, and
Yep.
so
The
you know,
knockoff
kudos
on
to
the
him.
choice specs, I think that was the real turning point.
Yeah, that's so I was really like at his mercy for a lot of this, and you know, maybe could have tried to position a little better to like get him to knock off the specs with Quagsire, but thankfully I didn't have to, and he just gave that to me for free. So I mean, well played to Josh. I think, you know, we both were a little careless to some degree, but yeah, it was a good match. It was a close one, and you know, that's you know, not bad for the first week after the break. So
Yeah.
any closing comments?
It was a fun match to watch. Had fun counting the Poltergeist misses.
Yeah, that was really
Really unfortunate how often it missed.
Yeah, that probably would have helped him, you know, secure a higher ground position, but you know, we'll never know. So, and that crit obviously, had
Just
that
a
been a
bit
turn
too late.
earlier, might have, yeah, that would probably would have done it for me. So, yeah. All right. Cool. Well, thank you for joining me, Joe, and
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's video and enjoyed the power rankings. And we will see you all later. Bye.
Bye.
And welcome again to the Power Rankings section of the Whooper Club Season 8. I am IllLogic, Coach of the Buffalo Boufflants. As always, I am joined by my co-host Steve, Coach of the Waterdeep Wobbuffets.
Hey, everybody.
And our guest for this week, I'm very excited to have him here. He's been our #1 team a couple times here now. It is Elfowls, Coach of the Newport Noctowls. How are you doing, buddy?
Great. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, definitely excited to have you here because once again, if we hop right into it, we see the Newport Noctowls are on top yet again, keeping their 5-0 undefeated record all the way through week 5. Following him are the Seattle Steamrollers, the Akron Aggros, and the Route 1 Burbs, but as our guest this week, I do kind of want to focus a little bit more on this first overall team, so let's hop into the match a little bit, where you faced off against my other co-host here, Steve, and won 2-0 over the Waterdeep Wobbuffets. He brought a team of Crobat, Barraskewda, Passimian, Tangrowth, Hydreigon, and Heatran. A little top-heavy there with some of your higher-tier picks, and that looked like that was pretty necessary to beat Steve. with only a narrow 2-0 win. It was a very close beginning of the match. Really enjoyed seeing the pivoting you two had around each other. You gave up Crobat relatively early, but it was for Conkeldurr damage, which set up, I think, for a much later end game. And you also didn't lose the speed advantage either, because we saw how important that Barraskewda was throughout the match. So even losing something like the base 130 speed Crobat didn't necessarily matter as much compared to the valuable chip you got on that Conkeldurr. There was great switching early, but I think especially after seeing what some of Steve's answers were, you were able to pivot around quite well. I saw that low Passimian did not attack into the Rocky Helmet Slowbro a little bit later, knowing that that was a possibility for him to swap into and doubling right back out yet again. And Barraskewda, again, really opened up the team quite a bit. It picked off some nice KOs here and there, and what Barraskewda couldn't take down, Tangrowth walled extremely well, so I really liked that combination of those two from you as well. Really enjoyed too. The Heatran went down around the middle of the game to an Earthquake, but it set up some extremely valuable rocks, which again combined with the Barraskewda damage from Aqua Jet finished off quite a few mons, made some mons irrelevant, forced things like Darmanitan at the end to stay in after it transformed, as it could no longer take too much Stealth Rock damage. It was honestly very well played. I think maybe the high impact moment was near the end. You stayed in on Conkeldurr with Barraskewda, maybe not as worried about Mach Punch knowing that you could survive, but that was an incredibly crucial turn. Barraskewda had enough health to maybe even survive a follow-up later from Togekiss. The other moment, of course, being Togekiss not flinching the Hydreigon, letting it hit a Flash Cannon off, and securing the game for Barraskewda at the very end. Steve, you put up a great fight here, but what do you have to say about this match and Elfowls so far this season?
He's been getting a lot of praise, so we gotta take shots where we can get him. That Tangrowth, man, the physical attacking prowess, terrible. Couldn't even KO Combuskin, a little Combuskin after Stealth Rock damage, like leaving that 1%. Didn't really matter too much. You just got to sack Passimian into it, and then Barraskewda, as mentioned, just comes in, cleans up. Honestly, Barraskewda throughout the match was terrible to deal with, regardless of what kind of setup I had. Anyone who was looking like, oh, this mon could just go on a tear right now, and then in comes Barraskewda, and they're done. So it was quite disappointing, but well played, and you've been having a great season. Do you have any other comments on this match or your season in general?
Yeah. So this match, actually, I was pretty scared going in. You, of course, have a bunch of these huge offensive threats. When Darmanitan transformed, I think for the first time we saw a substantial use of that Zen mode in the season. I was so scared that my whole team was going to get swept, and I was very lucky to have Barraskewda there. And then one other thing I wanted to point out is that a lot of hacks really was not in Steve's favor here. No Scald Burns, no Air Slash flinches from Togekiss, and of course the Raikou Thunder missing, which are not all consistent moves, of course, but it's a little odd that none of them happened. I think especially the Air Slashes might have turned the tide of the battle a little bit. And then, of course, shout out to Combuskin's Invisible Focus Band, coming in clutch there, forcing me to sack off Passimian.
Yeah, we all do that. I was holding the Focus Band the whole time. I guess I want to circle back again to this Barraskewda, which really did stand out. I think a lot of us maybe had some doubts about Barraskewda's effectiveness outside of the rain, but you've really made it work well all season.
Yeah, when I was first drafting, I kind of noticed that my team did need a lot more, not necessarily offensive presence, but fast offensive presence, because Crobat was really just a support mon. So I thought, well, there's a Rain Core in the draft already, and so I can counterpick that with Swift Simmon, and Barraskewda's attack's pretty good at anyway, so why not?
Absolutely, and I think often in draft people get pigeonholed into some roles that they like to have. One big one is the bulky water type, which doesn't necessarily leave a lot of room for the offensive water types, particularly on the physical side. But as someone with an 8-0 Arctivish, I could say I definitely have come to appreciate physically frail offensive water type pieces, and yours have been doing a lot of work as well. And to complete your pseudo ground, or rather grass fire water core, you have two very defensive pieces, Tangrowth and Heatran, which have just been an absolute nightmare for teams to break through. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of the mindset behind these two and their synergy together?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with your statement there. Heatran and Tangrowth were the first two mons that I drafted, and they have put so much pressure off of team building for me. I can bring those two, and of course, Heatran specifically, there are just certain mons that do not have the move pools to break through it. And then the ones that do, Tangrowth usually is pretty good at dealing with. Just the sheer bulk regenerative Tangrowth and leftovers, which usually does a lot for Heatran. I can pretty much stay healthy through most matches and not have to worry about being chipped down too much. So they've been very valuable in the season.
It definitely knows leftovers has been a favorite item. You still get plenty of chip with Magma Storm whenever it hits, at least, from the Heatran anyways, and just the raw stats from these two, the Regenerator ability from Tangrowth, the synergy type-wise, the sheer stats on Heatran, it's been super nice, super impressive, and I believe you also had a transaction you made as well, picking up the Alolan Sandslash. Before that, Heatran was the only rock setter on your entire team, I think. But since then, I start to look around at the team, you see a couple Defoggers there, Crobat and Hydreigon, you see the Rapid Spin, and it seems like you fixed up what used to be a pretty big hole in your team.
Yeah, initially, that Regice was the mon that I traded away, and that had been my last pick for the draft. I, at that point, had a few ideas stolen from me before I could pick them, so I just kind of went with the Regice, but later I realized that it really wasn't doing much for the team. Sandslash really, as soon as I drafted it, I brought it that week, and the spikes that it set up were very instrumental in that win for me against, I believe that was John. And the Ice Shard as well on it was very useful, and continues to be. If I ever see a big, scary dragon type on the other team, I know that I have some insurance in Ice Shard against it.
Absolutely, and I guess to kind of finish things up here, looking at the team in general, I see some high tier bonds, Hydreigon, something we haven't really talked about, but there's quite a bit of low tier bonds too. I know the Lantern's done a lot of work for you, Passimian is kind of a mid tier mon, has done quite well as well. Escavalier is always scary. You're not a team that has a giant 200 pick, but you're also someone that doesn't have something that's absolutely unusable. How have you liked that balance so far in your team?
Yeah, I have liked doing that so far. This being my first normal draft league, quote unquote. I am not too familiar with the strategies, but I've seen a lot of people, they go for a 200 point mon or two, and then grab something like I don't know, you have Cramorant, of course.
I will not stand up for the disrespect of Cramorant, but I understand. Go ahead.
Thank you. But I have had to leave behind some of my top mons, notably like Heatran was left out of week 1. I've left behind Hydreigon before, and it's been nice to have backup that I know can still get the job done. Rapidash coming in a lot more clutch than I thought it would be, and all those low tier mons, showing that even if I have to leave behind my strongest mons just due to matchup problems, that they can still put in the work.
Yeah, excellent. Everything's been used super well together. Cool to see the synergy coming together really well. And best of luck as you embark on what is potentially a perfect season here, though I know you'll have quite a tough matchup coming week 7. Any other thoughts from either of you two on the Elfowls' season so far, or shall we move on?
It looks like it's been a great season so far. Looking forward to the rest and future seasons where you're seeded more adequately based on this performance.
Yes, so Steve, the schedule maker, has had fits about how well you've been doing here. please apologize to him whenever we're finished here. You know he deserves it. Well, let's move on then to the number 2 team, which is the Seattle Steamrollers, coming back in. Talking about undefeated teams, Chad is once again impressing us all. Steve, why don't you take it away and talk about his 4-0 win over Zach?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, this week the Seattle Steamrollers played the Summit County Psyducks. Chad brought a team of Ninjask, Chansey, Frostlass, Corviknight, Volcarona, and Rillaboom. And as you mentioned, was able to secure a 4-0 victory. As always with Chad, you just got to shout out the pivoting into the correct defensive choice. He's very used to his core of Chansey and Corviknight, and expertly switches them in when needed. Anytime he's feeling pressured at all, just switches into the appropriate wall and takes a chance to recoup, and especially on the Chansey, teleport out to the offensive threat to counter whatever's out in front of them. I was able to also show off the physical prowess of Rillaboom, picking up a key early KO against the pesky wall of Clefable. And all in all, applying some great pressure there. But of course, the big story here at the end, big story news really. Volcarona coming in. Teams have been going through a lot, fairly well chipped. Volcarona is able to easily set up 2 quiver dances, and then even then, not one hit KO anything, but was bulky enough to be able to take the couple hits it had to take after setting up and remove the other 4 mons to clean up at the end. Great performance from Chad as always. Really putting in a lot of work, and he's definitely showing himself as a team not to be trifled with. Jimmy, you got anything you would like to add?
Sure. So one thing I'd like to speak to is that Chad had such a strong turn 1. Recognized that lead Silvally Fire would be a huge threat to his team, and fired off a crippling poltergeist from his Frostlass. Chipped it down to 30% for the whole match, and that opened the door for a lot of things. Rillaboom was able to come in and use grass moves to its heart's content, and of course in the end game, you saw the Volcarona sweep pretty much uncontested. That was after a few more of the Psyduck's resources had been expended. But yeah, overall very well played. It just felt like the match was over very early. The Psyducks just didn't quite have the firepower to break through that defensive core.
Yeah, definitely agree. As someone who has brought Fire Silvally against a very similar Chad team, I like the bring, and definitely a great call on Chad getting that necessary chip early on it. And also like to point out that even though Volcarona did not just simply come in and die, Ninjask fulfilled that role pretty well. It did get a defog off, and then promptly went down, only for Zach to get up rocks and webs yet again. So shout out to Chad for just stacking his bug types without any care in the world for them.
Not only did it come in and die, it came in after defying, of course, to set up Swords Dance for the opponent to use that attack stat to kill it.
Foul play.
Truly magnificent.
Absolutely true. The last thing I want to touch on, can we talk about a little bit how physically bulky Chansey is? For something with, I guess, defense stat of 5, when it's fully invested in, it just does not take damage from anything. There was a crucial turn where Garchomp went for Fire Fang against it, thinking that Corviknight Knight would come in. Chad just kind of stayed in on Garchomp, soft-boiled it up, and just continued its rampage. What an incredibly thick mon that's just impossible to deal with. Let's move on then to our number 3 team, the Akron Agrons, and Joey facing off against yet another Joey. Jimmy, why don't you talk to us a little bit about Joey's 2-0 victory against Sazbo?
So the Akron Agrons came in with a team of Tornadus T, Kyurem, Sylveon, Mienshao, Seismitoad, and Luxray, and they were able to come away with the 2-0 victory. Not quite a wide margin, and we'll see why the battle was so close in a second here. Early on, the Boldors actually had the upper hand with that Bronzong, straight-jacketing that Sylveon immediately with the Choice Band trick, and then uses Iron Defense boosted body presses to tear through a ton of Joey's team. Absolutely destroyed Luxray, managed to seriously weaken that Tornadus T. But right afterwards, Joey recognized that, forced the Bronzong out with Kyurem, and Sazbo was put in a kind of a bad spot after that. He was forced to threaten out Kyurem by pivoting in Pelipper, switching out to Kingdra after that, which then actually went down to Sylveon without accomplishing much. That Rain Core, unfortunately, not getting to see its full potential this match. After that, the Boulders were able to come in with a bit more offensive pressure, Aegislash, racking up a few more kills with a nice Hurricane Miss in there too from Tornadus. But after it went down, between the Aegislash and the Bronzong being gone and the Pelipper being rather chipped down, nothing was there to take the close combats from that Mienshao. It just tore through the rest of Sazbo's team to get a reverse 4-0 sweep and end in a 2-0 victory. Overall, I think this was really well played by Joey. Recognized that this was an exceptional matchup for the Mienshao after some key threats were removed. So I like to play to keep it tucked in the back while he forced Sazbo to expend his resources. Nate, you got anything to add?
Yeah, definitely, and in accordance with that too, yeah, that Aegislash was, I think, obviously the biggest threat to a close combat sweep, and I think he played very well around it with the Seismitoad. Obviously a great bring against a rain team, but in particular too able to recognize things like King Shield coming out on Age Slash and getting up those crucial rocks, which did bring down Pelipper at the very end there without needing to waste another close combat and forcing it to just go down immediately. It wasn't necessarily the most useful with Kingdra already down, but I thought he played very smart around that to chip down the Age of Slash as much as necessary and eventually pick up the KO, no matter how much it expended from his pool. As you said, when it was down to just 4 mons, Mean Xiao just clicked a button and went to town. Got anything else to add before we move on then, Steve?
Yeah, I'm gonna shout out Zasbo here, even though we're talking about Joey. Great choice bringing on a setup sweeper against Joey Bronzong. We all saw, the incredible effectiveness setup sweepers tend to have against Joey. Unfortunately, Bronzong didn't quite have the speed needed to really compete, but Joey struggled severely to get through it. So, excellent choice there. I also am very upset that I thought no one else was looking at Mean Xiao and put it off, and Joey got it.
Well, there you go. Bring setup sweepers against Joey to win, except if they're as slow as Bronzong. Alright, let's move on to our final match of our top 4. It is once again the Route 1 Burbs. You may have noticed we do have the same top 4 as last time, but if none of them lose and all of them have rather impressive wins, then it's tough to move anyone around, honestly. We may be able to talk about that a little bit in a sec here. But first we're going to go over the Burbs' victory over John, and it was a very impressive 6-0 victory using his team of Dragapult, Umbreon, Meowstic, yet again, Mamoswine, Keldeo, and Rotom Frost. Maybe a couple lower tier mons in there, but I thought it was fantastic. An early Meowstic screen, and then Rotom came in relatively early. Look at the amazing coverage this Rotom had, enhanced mostly by the electric moves being absolutely free, John not bringing any ground mons at all, and just getting a lot of pressure from the switching potential of that, and the Keldeo especially, the flip turn Keldeo and the Volt Switch Rotom just ran house on John's team, especially when it was able to go into something like Umbreon, who could wall up on literally everything on its opponent's team, or the Mamoswine, who got up Rock's very key position there as he swapped in the Archeops, only for Mamoswine to also get a KO. And especially once Archeops was gone, Earthquake was looking more and more free. It took a little bit longer than you may expect for how dominant it seems. We have 49 turns here, but the momentum gained from Rotom and Keldeo got John so scared that he was forced to swap around a lot. I even saw a turn where he used Parting Shot on Meowstic. Obviously need to shut down that big threat there by lowering its special attack. So in comparison to the effective switching that Risky Biscuit was able to get, John's switching really didn't accomplish much. It didn't gain any ground, really. He kept getting chipped by rocks and by the actual damaging moves, as opposed to things like Teleport from Wigglytuff and Slowking and Parting Shot from Incineroar. In the end, it was pretty easy, I think, for the Burbs to walk away with this 49 turns, but a very clean 6-0 victory. Steve, why don't you take it away for what else we have to talk about this match?
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned how effective this was. I think the backbone of this was definitely the wish passing Umbreon along with the screens Meowstic. Able to keep his team healthy and limit the damage really allowed him to weather the storm and compare with John's Regenerator core. It really led to a lot. Also, Michael's done a great job throughout the season of really effectively using the lower tier mons. Dragapult and Keldeo. Keldeo did have that good flip turns, but outside of that, his two big top tier mons didn't really do much this battle. It was the KOs and a lot of the damage was coming from the Mamoswine and the Rotom with the backbone of Umbreon and Meowstic. Those not the bottom of the barrel, but lower tier mons really put it in a lot of work for him. Jimmy, anything else?
Yeah, you guys have covered this pretty well. I think that it really was a story of the Burbs just having enough bulk and recovery to stay healthy while John's mons were really just chipped down. That Archeops going down early meant that John really just didn't have the offensive presence to threaten some of the Burbs' more defensive core, especially that Umbreon, which just sat there and passed switches all game, with John not really being able to do much about it.
Absolutely true. Just put on a clinic here for us. See how he does in future weeks here, but that'll cover our top 4. We actually going on to teams that we keep an eye on. Straight Snuff only have one team really that's of note. Steve, talk to us a little bit. Why did we only include the Cincinnati Incineroar? What do they have to offer that makes you think they have a chance to get into our top 4?
So I argued here to keep the Cincinnati Incineroar in here. As one thing, they are the only other team for our top 4 with a winning record after 5 weeks. So they're the next logical choice to include. But the big thing is just based on kind of how a lot of some people who have historically not done as well, doing well, and people who've historically done well doing poorly, the division of the schedule has really worked in Matt's favor here. He's in a group where he doesn't have to play the Noctowls, he doesn't have to play the Steamrollers, and he doesn't have to play the Agrons at all. With 3 of the top 4 teams being games he doesn't have to play, he actually has one of the easiest schedules, and the rest of his schedule moving forward, the Close Combat Club, the Summit County Psyducks, and the Buffalo Bouffalon, all those teams have losing records. Not saying they're going to be easy matches. The Close Combat Club are at 2-3, the Buffalo Bouffalon are at 2-3. Those are definitely both games that could be lost. And of course, the Psyducks, Zach's done some great things in the past, so he could come out and win that too. It's not an easy road, but just looking at his schedule, I thought it would best to keep our eyes on him. If he wins these games and some of the other top 4 start playing each other and get eliminated, he might be able to sneak in there with a 6-2 record at the end of the season.
Fair enough, yeah. And we're maybe also, too, keeping a low number here because as soon as next week, we can start clinching some spots, I believe, up there in the top. Depending on how things play out, we could have some teams already guaranteed a bye in the first round. And we're only 5 weeks through out of 8 total. So that's a little bit of a story, I think, how top-heavy the league has been. And we'll see if those top 4 will be able to keep it up through the end of the season. And as always, we're going to wrap things up here with the Week 6 schedule look ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a showdown between your 2 co-hosts here, the Wobbuffets and the Bouffalons squaring off before, of course, we are making potentially some game-changing moves. We'll go into a lot more detail next week about what happens after the trade deadline. Just a nice little teaser there for y'all. The Boulder Boulders and the Seattle Steamrollers facing off as well. The Boulders looking to get back on track after a couple of tough losses. They've played a lot of close games, and the Steamrollers have been steamrolling their opposition, so that could be a whole lot of fun. The Incineroar and Close Combat Club, as was touched on a little bit ago. The Incineroar 3-2, the Close Combat Club 2-3, very crucial for their positionings. We've got an awesome match coming up. The Route 1 Burbs and the Newport Noctowls, excited to see that one. The Summit County Psyducks and Zanesville Zigzagoons, both teams trying to get back into it, get a little more momentum before the playoffs. And the Akron Agrons versus the 1-win now mighty Miltanks. And what could be a very fun match. Anything in particular about this week that stands out to you two, or anything else at all that you'd like to talk about before we wrap things up here?
I would just like to add, there's a couple matches, I've had circled for a while. Of course, my match with you, really excited. Glad to see that the pressure's, down on both of us. We're both having pretty bad seasons at this point, so one of us having worse, and that is, of course, you. But yeah, also really looking forward to the Burbs Noctowls match. 2 of the top 4 teams going up against each other. That is definitely going to be a great match that we're going to see sometime in the future and not the past.
Yes, definitely has not already happened. Elfowls our guest.
Yeah, I'd also like to speak to the match that'll happen between you two, the Wobbuffets, Buffalo Bouffalon. 2 teams that I know are not doing amazing in the season right now, but every week I always come to watch these games. They are very high-level play every time for me, too. So I'm excited to see that.
And I guess that it kind of speaks more towards the magnitude of level of play this season. I've mentioned before, the competition is fiercer than ever, and probably leading the way there is our newcomer Elfowls. So thank you again for joining us. It's been a blast watching you all season compete so well. It's great to have you into the regular draft league here. And that'll do it from us. Join us next week for the Week 6 power rankings. Let's see if maybe we can get some shakeups here in the top 4 or not. See ya.